Madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
We put on a happy face. We follow the rules. We pretend everything is fine. But deep in the theater, watching Arthur Fleck transform into the Joker, something disturbing happens. We don't just watch the chaos. We feel it calling to us. In 2019, Joker became the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time. But here's what terrifies me about that statistic. Millions of people didn't just watch a man descend into madness. They cheered for it. They related to it. They felt understood by it. Jung called it the shadow self, that dark part of our psyche we desperately try to hide. Nietzsche warned us about staring into the abyss. And Dostoevsky knew that underground men exist in all of us. But what if I told you that our attraction to chaos isn't a bug in human psychology, it's a feature? What if the Joker doesn't represent our worst impulses, but our most honest ones? What if society didn't create a monster, but revealed the monster it always was? Tonight, we're going down the rabbit hole, and I promise you, by the end of this journey, you'll never look at that smile the same way again. The Joker has been terrorizing audiences for over 80 years, but it wasn't until 2019 that Todd Phillips gave us something truly revolutionary. A Joker origin story that felt uncomfortably real. This isn't the chemical vat accident of Alan Moore's Killing Joke. This isn't Heath Ledger's anarchistic force of nature. This is Arthur Fleck, a failed comedian, living with his mother, struggling with mental illness in a society that's forgotten how to care. And that's what makes this version so dangerous. Because in 2025, we're living in Arthur's world. We have the highest rates of depression and anxiety in recorded history. Social media has made us more connected yet more isolated than ever. The gap between rich and poor grows wider each day. And somewhere in our cities there are thousands of Arthur Flecks, one bad day away from putting on the makeup. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. When Arthur finally becomes the Joker, he doesn't just embrace chaos, he finds peace. For the first time in the film, he stops apologizing for existing. He stops trying to fit into a world that never wanted him. And that terrifies us because deep down, we recognize that feeling. We've all felt like Arthur Fleck. We've all wanted to stop pretending. We've all fantasized about what it would feel like to finally let go. But the deeper you look into this psychology, into what the Joker really represents in our collective unconscious, the scarier it gets. To understand why chaos attracts us, we need to start at the beginning. The Joker first appeared in Batman 1 in 1940, and from day one, he represented something primal, the complete rejection of social order. But every generation gets the Joker it deserves. The 1960s gave us Cesar Romero's campy prankster, reflecting a more optimistic America that could laugh at its villains. The 1980s brought us Jack Nicholson's mob boss Joker, capitalism run amok in Reagan's America.
Had you ever heard of the healing power of laughter?
Then came Heath Ledger's masterpiece in 2008. This Joker wasn't interested in money or power. He wanted to prove that civilization was just a thin veneer over chaos. Introduce a little anarchy, he says, upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos.
But Ledger's Joker was still an external force, a terrorist, an outsider. Todd Phillips did something far more subversive in 2019. He made the Joker us.
I killed those guys because they were awful. Everybody is awful these days. It's enough to make anyone crazy.
Arthur Fleck isn't born evil. He's created by a society that simultaneously demands conformity and punishes those who can't achieve it. He works a minimum wage job, cares for his sick mother, tries desperately to make people laugh. He follows every rule of social acceptability and is rewarded with mockery, violence, and abandonment.
Steady! Stay down, freak!
This scene, where Arthur kills the 3 Wall Street guys, this is the moment everything changes. Not just for Arthur, but for us watching. Because for the first time, the violence feels justified. These men were bullying him. They represented everything wrong with society. And when Arthur fights back, we don't feel horror, we feel catharsis. From a psychological perspective, this is what Freud called the return of the repressed. Arthur has spent his entire life suppressing his anger, his pain, his desire for respect. But repression never eliminates these feelings. It just builds pressure, and eventually, every pressure cooker explodes. The terrifying truth is that every society creates its own Arthur Flecks. Every system of oppression breeds its own resistance. Every act of systematic cruelty plants the seeds of chaotic revenge. But why does watching that revenge feel so satisfying? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who gave us the concept of the collective unconscious, had a theory that would make your skin crawl. He believed that every human psyche contains what he called the shadow self, the repository of all the impulses, desires, and thoughts we've been taught to suppress. The shadow isn't evil, according to Jung. It's simply everything we're not allowed to be. It's our anger when society demands politeness. It's our selfishness when we're taught to sacrifice. It's our desire for power when we're told to be humble. It's our sexuality when we're taught shame. It's our violence when we're told to turn the other cheek. Watch this transformation scene carefully. This isn't just Arthur putting on makeup. This is a man integrating his shadow self. For his entire life, Arthur has been the perfect victim. Passive, apologetic, desperate for approval. But the Joker represents everything Arthur has been forced to repress. Confidence, power, the ability to say no. Look at this dance. This isn't the movement of someone who's lost his mind. This is someone who's finally found himself. After a lifetime of suppressing who he really is, Arthur is experiencing what Jung called individuation, the integration of all parts of the psyche, including the shadow. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this too, though he called it something different. "What does not destroy me makes me stronger," he wrote. But he also warned, "He who fights monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster, and if thou gaze long into an abyss, the abyss will also gaze into thee." Arthur's pathological laugh, the condition that makes him laugh uncontrollably when he's uncomfortable, this is his shadow self trying to break through. His conscious mind is saying, "I'm fine, everything's fine," but his unconscious is screaming, "This is not fine. Nothing about this is fine." Modern neuroscience supports Jung's intuition. We now know that suppressing emotions doesn't eliminate them. It drives them into what psychologists call underground processing. The emotions don't disappear, they ferment. They grow stronger in the darkness. They wait for their moment to surface. And here's what's truly terrifying. The shadow self isn't just individual, it's collective. Jung believed that entire societies have a shadow, composed of all the impulses that culture forbids. In America, our collective shadow includes our history of violence, our systematic inequalities, our worship of power disguised as democracy. The riots at the end of Joker aren't just random violence, they're the collective shadow of Gotham finally breaking free. All the suppressed rage of the poor, the mentally ill, the forgotten, it's all erupting at once. But here's the question that keeps me awake at night. If the shadow self is inevitable, if suppression only makes it stronger, should we be trying to integrate it? Should we be learning from the Joker instead of fearing him? The answer might be more disturbing than you think. Why do we find the Joker attractive? Not sexually, though some certainly do, but psychologically compelling. Why did millions of people leave the theater feeling like they understood Arthur Fleck better than they understood themselves? The answer lies in what psychologists call vicarious catharsis. We can't act on our darkest impulses in real life. That would destroy our relationships, our careers, our freedom. But we can experience them safely through fiction. The Joker becomes our psychological pressure valve. How many of us have wanted to tell our boss exactly what we think of them? How many times have you smiled and nodded when you wanted to scream? Arthur Fleck represents every moment you've swallowed your pride, accepted unfair treatment, pretended to be okay when you weren't. This is why anti-heroes have dominated popular culture for the past 2 decades. Walter White, Tony Soprano, Dexter Morgan, Tyler Durden. These characters do what we cannot. They refuse to be victims. They take control of their lives through methods that are morally questionable, but emotionally satisfying. But the Joker goes further than these other anti-heroes. Walter White still justified his actions through family obligation. Tony Soprano still maintained the facade of being a businessman. The Joker strips away all justification, all pretense. He says, I hurt because I was hurt. I take because I was denied. I destroy because I was destroyed. It's pure psychological honesty.
What do you get
I don't think so.
when you cross
I think
a
we're
mentally
done
ill
with your
loner
jokes.
with a
That's it.
society that abandons him and treats him like trash?
Fyodor Dostoevsky understood this psychology 150 years ago when he wrote Notes from Underground. His narrator is a bitter, spiteful man who says, I am a sick man, I am a spiteful man, I am an unpleasant man. But then he explains why. Society has made him this way through systematic humiliation and exclusion. The underground man, like Arthur Fleck, isn't evil by nature, he's evil by design. Society created him, then acts shocked when he refuses to continue being its victim. Dostoevsky called this the psychology of the underground, the mindset of those who have been systematically excluded from the benefits of civilization. In our current era of digital isolation, we're creating more underground men than ever before. Social media promises connection but delivers comparison. Online culture promises community but delivers judgment. Economic systems promise prosperity but deliver anxiety. Look at Arthur's journal. The worst part of having a mental illness is people expect you to behave as if you don't. This line hit audiences like a psychological sledgehammer because it articulated something millions of people feel but can't express: the exhaustion of performing normalcy when you're drowning inside. Clinical psychology calls this masking, or camouflaging, the constant effort to appear neurotypical when you're neurodivergent, mentally ill, or simply struggling. Studies show that chronic masking leads to burnout, depression, and what researchers call autistic breakdown, a complete inability to maintain the facade any longer. Arthur's transformation into the Joker isn't a descent into madness, it's an ascent into authenticity. He stops masking. He stops apologizing for existing. He becomes, for the first time in his life, genuinely himself. And we find that attractive because we're all wearing masks. We're all performing versions of ourselves that we think society wants to see. The Joker represents the terrifying freedom of finally taking the mask off. But the Joker isn't just individual psychology. He's social criticism wrapped in clown makeup. Every version of the character has reflected the anxieties of his era, and the 2019 version is no exception. Arthur lives in a Gotham that's a funhouse mirror of contemporary America. The rich live in luxury while the poor struggle for basic services. Mental health resources have been cut, social programs have been eliminated. The gap between haves and have-nots has become a chasm. Thomas Wayne, running for mayor, calls the poor clowns. Not knowing his choice of insult will become prophetic. He represents the wealthy elite who see poverty not as a systematic failure but as a personal moral failing. If you work hard, his campaign implies, you won't end up like Arthur. This isn't subtle allegory, it's direct commentary on our current political moment. When politicians call struggling people takers or losers, when they cut mental health funding while increasing police budgets, when they criminalize homelessness while celebrating billionaires, they're creating Arthur Flecks. Notice how the film uses Gotham's subway system. The three Wall Street guys who torment Arthur aren't just random bullies. They represent a class of people who see the subway as their personal playground, who treat service workers as entertainment, who assume their wealth gives them the right to humiliate others. When Arthur kills them, he's not just defending himself, he's striking back against an entire social order that has declared him worthless. And the film's genius is that it makes us feel the satisfaction of that strike. This is the same technique used by films like Parasite, Sorry to Bother You, and Knives Out. They make us complicit in the violence by making it feel justified. We become accomplices to chaos, because chaos feels more honest than the systematic cruelty it's responding to. The Murray Franklin Show represents another layer of social criticism, the media's role in creating and exploiting human suffering for entertainment. Murray doesn't invite Arthur on his show to help him or understand him. He invites him to mock him, to turn his pain into content. How many times have you seen news outlets cover mental health crises by interviewing the most unstable people they can find? How many reality shows are built around humiliating vulnerable people? How many social media influencers built their careers on exposing others' private struggles? When Arthur finally confronts Murray, he's confronting more than just one talk show host. He's confronting an entire entertainment complex that profits from human misery while pretending to care about it. Hannah Arendt wrote about the banality of evil, how systematic cruelty often comes wrapped in bureaucratic normalcy. But the Joker represents the opposite, the spectacle of resistance. He makes his rebellion impossible to ignore, impossible to dismiss, impossible to bureaucratize away. Throughout history, when peaceful protest is ignored, people turn to more dramatic methods. The Boston Tea Party was vandalism. The French Revolution was chaos. The Civil Rights Movement included riots alongside marches. Sometimes chaos is the only language that power understands. Let me tell you something I've never admitted publicly. When I first watched Joker in 2019, I left the theater feeling uncomfortable, not because the film was disturbing, but because I found Arthur's transformation inspiring. I thought about all the times I'd been passed over for promotions by less qualified but more charismatic colleagues. All the times I'd smiled politely while someone treated me dismissively. All the moments I'd chosen politeness over honesty, conformity over authenticity. Watching Arthur finally say no to a world that had been saying no to him his entire life, there was something deeply cathartic about that. And I realized that my discomfort wasn't moral outrage at his actions, it was recognition of my own suppressed desires. This is what Jung meant when he talked about projection. We don't hate the Joker because he's foreign to us. We hate him because he represents parts of ourselves we've been taught to disown. Our attraction to him reveals our own shadow material. Think about your own life. What parts of yourself have you had to suppress to fit in? What desires have you buried to be socially acceptable? What anger have you swallowed to maintain relationships? What dreams have you abandoned to meet others' expectations? Arthur's journal entry says, "I just hope my death makes more sense than my life." But the tragedy isn't that he wants to die, it's that he never learned to live authentically. He spent so much energy trying to be who others wanted him to be, that he never discovered who he actually was. We're all living this to some degree in the age of social media. We curate our online selves to present the image we think will get approval. We suppress our struggles to maintain our brand. We perform happiness while experiencing depression, success while feeling like failures, confidence while drowning in anxiety. Analytical, but look again at Arthur's bathroom dance after his first kill. This isn't the dance of someone who's lost his mind, this is someone who's found his body. For the first time in the film, Arthur moves with genuine confidence. He's not performing for anyone else's approval, he's simply being. Eastern philosophy has a concept called authenticity fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from constantly monitoring and adjusting your behavior to meet external expectations. The Joker represents the relief that comes when you finally stop caring what others think. But here's the dangerous part. Authentic self-expression and destructive behavior aren't the same thing. Arthur's mistake wasn't embracing his authentic self, it was believing that authenticity required destroying others. The real question isn't whether we should embrace our shadow selves, it's how we can integrate them without becoming destructive. How do we honor our anger without hurting innocent people? How do we express our pain without inflicting it on others? How do we be authentic without being cruel? And that brings us to the most important part of this entire analysis. Understanding the Joker's psychology isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's a roadmap for understanding ourselves. But unlike Arthur Fleck, we have choices about how to respond to our shadow material. First, recognize that your dark thoughts and impulses are normal. The shadow self isn't a bug in human psychology, it's a feature. Everyone has moments of rage, resentment, and destructive fantasy. The difference between healthy and unhealthy people isn't the presence or absence of these thoughts, it's what they do with them. Arthur's journal was actually a healthy impulse. He was trying to process his thoughts and feelings through writing. The problem was that he had no one to share these insights with, no community to help him process them constructively. Modern psychology emphasizes the importance of shadow work, deliberately exploring and integrating your repressed aspects in safe, controlled ways. This might mean therapy, creative expression, honest conversations with trusted friends, or even just acknowledging your darker thoughts without judgment. If you find yourself relating to Arthur's anger at workplace humiliation, instead of suppressing it or exploding, try writing about it, discussing it with a therapist, channeling it into advocacy for workplace rights, or using it as motivation to develop skills that give you more career options. Arthur's mistake in the subway wasn't feeling anger at his tormentors, it was believing that violence was his only response. But anger can also fuel positive change, activism, boundary setting, creative expression, or simply the decision to remove yourself from toxic situations. The Joker represents what Jung called inflation, when the shadow self takes over completely. But healthy integration means neither suppressing the shadow nor being possessed by it. It means acknowledging your dark impulses while choosing constructive responses.
On a social level, understanding the Joker means recognizing how systematic cruelty creates systematic rebellion. If we want fewer Arthur Flecks in the world, we need to create fewer conditions that produce them. Better mental health resources, reduced inequality, more opportunities for meaningful work and community connection.
The seductive power of the Joker is that he finally says no to a world that's been abusing him. But you don't have to become destructive to become empowered. You can set boundaries without hurting people. You can express anger without causing harm. You can be authentic without being cruel. The goal isn't to eliminate your shadow. It's to dance with it, to let it inform your choices without letting it control your actions, to honor your darkness while choosing to act from your light. As Nietzsche wrote, one must have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star. The Joker shows us what happens when chaos consumes the person. But true wisdom means learning to birth stars from our chaos, to transform our pain into art, our anger into activism, our suffering into wisdom that can help others. The next time you find yourself attracted to the Joker's chaos, ask yourself, what part of my shadow is calling to be acknowledged? What authentic aspect of myself have I been suppressing? How can I honor that truth without destroying what I love? So why does chaos attract us? Because order has failed us. We're drawn to the Joker not because we want to hurt people, but because we want to stop being hurt by people. When Arthur dances in that bathroom, he's not celebrating violence. He's celebrating freedom. Freedom from pretense, from performance, from the exhausting effort of trying to be someone else. And we find that dance beautiful because we all long for that same freedom. Arthur Fleck isn't the villain of his story. Society is. He doesn't create chaos. He reveals the chaos that was always there, hidden beneath the surface of civilization. Arthur Fleck puts on makeup, but we all wear masks. He pretends to be happy, but we all perform joy while experiencing pain. The only difference between us and Arthur Fleck is circumstance, support systems, and perhaps luck. So the next time you see someone struggling, someone whose pain makes you uncomfortable, remember Arthur Fleck. Remember that every monster is someone's abandoned child. And remember that in a world that creates jokers, the most radical act might not be chaos at all. It might be compassion. But here's what I need to know from you. And this is going to reveal something dark about your own psychology. In the comments below, tell me which moment in any villain story made you think, you know what, they're right. Was it Thanos snapping his fingers? Tyler Durden blowing up the credit companies? The Joker killing Murray? I want to know the exact moment a villain's logic actually made sense to you, because that's your shadow self talking. If this psychological deep dive messed with your head, smash that like button and check out my analysis of why we secretly root for villains. Link in the description. Subscribe for more philosophy that'll make you question everything you think you know about heroes and villains. Until next time, remember, the line between hero and villain might be thinner than you think.